Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. And I'm re-recording this. So I filmed the weekly wrap-up. It was done. And I checked the video, and there is no sound, none. It was a great silent video wrap up. You could see my mouth moving, and there was no content coming out of it. So we're gonna re-record it, and we're gonna re-record it with dogs on the couch and be a little more informal. So, housekeeping. If you're new here, I am so thankful, and I hope you find something new and interesting to you to read. And I enjoy chatting in the comments, so feel free to leave a comment down below. If you were afflicted by Hurricane Helene, I'm glad you have come through safely, and I hope that you and everyone you know and love has come through safely as well. And I hope that you're all in my prayers, and that help comes your way in an expeditious manner. And I also am praying that, the current hurricane spinning up does not have the impact that Helene had. Okay, so what did I read last week? Fireball, settle. No, Fireball. Lay down. Yes, I know. You're very unloved. No one ever pays attention to the old lady. I know, huh? I know. As your sister eats a bone on the sofa because she's so spoiled. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay. Settle. Okay. First up, the DNF of the week. That would be Kendall and Crow by Kevin Hearn. This is the third and final book in the Ink and Sigil series. And I apologize, Kahlua is eating a bone. And there was absolutely nothing wrong with this book. Except, I was bored. I was bored. Fireball, lay down. So this is the third book in the series. It is an adjacent series to the Iron Druid series, written by Kevin Hearn. And I absolutely loved the Iron Druid series. I listened to them on Audible. They are fantastic audiobooks. Are they going to be every reader's cup of tea? No, they are urban fantasy. There are a lot of old gods from mythology that appear in the books. And it is an absolutely funny, joyful, entertaining, modern fantasy series. Ink and Sigil is loosely related to it. Not loosely, it is related to it. It is in the Iron Druid world. However, there was too big of a time gap between books 2 and book 3 for me. These are not, big old hefty tomes of books. They're short enough that there should not be multiple years between them. I don't know if there was something going on in the author's life, other projects, whatever. I was just bored. And so I had an arc from NetGalley, and this is obviously my fair and honest review, like I give for every book. So the book releases tomorrow, the 1st of October, and it would probably be a much different, Fireball. It would probably be a much different reading experience now that all 3 books in the trilogy have been released, and I could read them back to back. And, I may do that someday, but I was just bored, and I didn't care about character arcs at this point, and I DNF'd it last week. So it isn't a reflection on Kevin's ability to write. It isn't a reflection on the series. It was just, I was bored. Okay, so what did I read last week? I read 2 nonfictions. I know, who am I? And 1 sci-fi. So let's talk about the nonfictions first. First up would be Whispers of Mary by Gail Summers. This is what 12 Old Testament women teach us about Mary. I read this throughout the month of September. There are 12 chapters. It covers, obviously, 12 Old Testament women. And it follows the Bible timeline, like all Ascension books. So chapters are color-coded accordingly. And this was absolutely fantastic. The paper quality is terrific. I highlighted the book throughout in the same color pen so that when I go back and I read this at a later point, I can use a different colored highlighter and it will be denoted by, year 2024 was this dark pink color. And if you want to grow your devotion to Mary, if you want to understand how women in the Old Testament relate back to Mary in the New Testament, this is a great resource. If you are not Catholic and you tend to believe the lie that Catholics worship Mary, then I can highly recommend this book as a way to refute that incredibly insidious lie that I'm not going to get into theology, but I have no trouble recommending this to non-Catholics who want to understand their Catholic friends better and understand why Catholics have such a great devotion and relationship to Mary and how that relates back beautifully throughout the Bible. I absolutely loved this book. I love doing this as, 3 chapters a week in the month. And there are times and passages in here where you just stopped and went, oh, right. I need to stop and reflect and think about that. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I am so grateful I picked this up. And I will undoubtedly return to this again at some point in the future and not be unhappy about that at all. Okay, say hi to Fireball. She decided she was going to put her little self in a picture frame. Okay. So, next up, let's talk about Live Not by Lies by Rod Dreher. This is nonfiction, and I will tell you right up front, as a result of reading this book, I want to read everything the man has written or will write in the future. I have never said that about a nonfiction author before in my life. However, the impact of this book was phenomenal. I could have annotated almost every page. There are annotation tabs in here throughout. If you have children, Kahlua, stop. If you have children, or if you have nieces and nephews, then please go read this book. Please go understand the point this book is trying to make. I will read you the opening paragraph of the tab. Survivors of Soviet totalitarianism have a warning for us. It can happen here. Over the past few years, America has seen the rise of a chilling, soft totalitarianism. Something more Brave New World than 1984. Identity politics are beginning to encroach on every aspect of life. Progressives attempt to marginalize conservatives, traditional Christians, and other dissenters, sneering at the idea of civil liberties protecting their beliefs. Corporations now censor opinions with which they disagree. Technology is inching us toward a surveillance state, and consumerism has dulled our spirits and made us willing to accept a secularism imposed not by gulags, but by softer means. So, hang on. Okay, now that I have a Kahlua, as you know, this year I've read, one was a book club read and one was a book club choice that didn't make it in a different poll. I've read 2 books that bookend the Cold War, and this is kind of the non-fiction consequences of the Bolshevik Revolution and the implementation of Stalinism and communism throughout the Eastern Bloc. And so he interviewed a lot of survivors of not just Soviet communism, but in Romania and Hungary and Poland, and got their perspectives. And one of the overarching commonalities between survivors and countries is the importance of physical communal relationships. You know, having a circle of people in real life that you talk to and that you can share things with. The importance of cultural history, the importance of personal history and familial history, and sharing those things and being willing and open to talk about those things despite potential consequences. And what survivors of communism will tell you time and time again is there's always a threat to self, but you cannot let that threat to yourself and those you love stop you from being a light of the grace of God as He lives within you. And what you hear repeatedly from survivors of the Gulag or torture and imprisonment under communism is that the state can take away your access to materials, but if you know the tenets of your faith, and if you understand the lessons that have come before you, you will have that knowledge within you, and you can rely on it in the darkest of times. And in the darkest of times, your suffering will draw you closer to God. This was an absolutely heart-wrenching and a wake-up call read. And he talks about how survivors of communism can see its insidious tentacles in our society. You know, willing to give up personal information online to have a sense of community. We're willing to cede essential civil liberties under the guise of security, and we take alleged short-term gains, and we never get anything back out of it, and we certainly never wrest control back. So it's up to all of us to stand up and say no in the face of conformist pressure to something we know is wrong, and to build interpersonal communal relationships that are not limited to online interactions. And I say this as a lifelong introvert who has always had an incredibly small circle of friends in real life. I have great family, and extended family ties and bonds, and all that is solid, even if I don't currently live near any family, unfortunately. But I've never been, my nose has always been in a book more than it's ever been a social butterfly. And I can see the difference in my parents' generation, my generation, and the generations after me. So my parents this has always been true throughout my entire life, have always had a wide circle of friends. They've always been involved in groups and activities. And when they moved into their retirement community more than 20 years ago now, they immediately joined clubs, and they immediately were off, doing things. And they have, to this day, 20 years later, they're still, the retirement community is organized into, subdivisions. And so they have a subdivision lunch once a quarter, and they go Christmas partying, and they have card game clubs, and they have book clubs and golf, and they do all of those things. They are very active socially. My generation, Gen X, we are very happy if everybody just, leaves us alone. We're good. If you leave us alone, we're great. Don't. We are not the generation of joiners by any sense of the imagination. And, should you bother us, we'll be more than happy to tell you to go away, and we will protect those we love and are close to. But in general, we're not the generation of joining stuff. And then there's the generations after us who I have serious concerns for. Hang on, dog issues. So, and this ties back into the book. In the book, he talks about two survivors, the rise of the internet and Facebook and Twitter and the Instagram, aesthetic. And the survivors of communism are just all universally horrified. And I understand why they're horrified. Nothing is... Where was I before the dogs lost their collective minds? Oh, somebody was getting into their car. How scary. He does that every day. Okay. So the generations that come after mine are absolutely unfamiliar with a world that does not include cell phones and the internet, and they seem incapable of not sharing their entire life online. There is, as the victims and survivors of communism will tell you time and time again when asked, when you put it all out there, the state finds the easiest method to control the masses without it being obvious. When nothing is hidden and nothing is personal and nothing is private, everything is subject to be used against you. And it's very hard to understand that if you don't know history and you don't talk about things you find uncomfortable or things that challenge the official story. However, never pushing back leads to a life no one wants to experience. I cannot recommend this book enough. I cannot recommend it enough if you have children. I don't care if those children are 3 or 23 or nieces and nephews. It is a book every parent needs to read. They do not need to be Christian to read this book and understand its points. Do I think it naturally coincides with my own personal biases? Absolutely it does. But I recognize that. And I can see the weaknesses in the arguments, but it doesn't invalidate the point. And survivors of communism say the same thing universally, time and time again. And as they age, we're beginning to lose those first-hand accounts, and they're suppressed, and we can't allow that to happen. I fear for the future. And I am not the greatest user of social media. You know, my Instagram posts are inconsistent. I see the groupthink involved, and it terrifies me. And it's not going to be a popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. And it specifically relates to books. The rise and dominance of Goodreads and the toxicity involved in Goodreads is a great example that relates back to what this book is trying to say. Readers have lost their curiosity to pick up a book and discover its contents for themselves without first checking Goodreads and without first checking to see what all their friends thought. Well, I'm sorry, but you are a grown adult or intelligent enough to, I use that phraseology loosely, by the way, be on Goodreads to look up a book in the first place. So just go open the book yourself and read it. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is you find it's not for you and you DNF the book. But you decided for yourself. You made judgments that relate to your personal life and your personal beliefs, and not some random stranger on the internet with whom you have no relationship. Because unless you're, talking to another person on the internet on a very regular basis about things outside of your initial shared interest. They're just lovely people you met online, but they are not actually... It's going to be so polarizing, and I can't help it. It's how I feel. They're not friends who are going to come riding to your rescue at midnight when, you know, your car breaks down or there's an accident or you're, you know, sobbing because something happened. Those are people in real life that we need to cultivate and cherish and find and discover. And social media isolates us and makes us very lonely people. And lonely people are easy to manipulate and easy to control and easy to pacify. So, I highly recommend this book. I am planning on reading everything he has written. He has just... It's a life-altering book. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay, next up. What fiction did I read this week? So, I read The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey. This was my birthday gift from the wonderful Chrissy over at Chrissy's Purple Library, which, you know, like always, I will link down below. And this is the first book in the Captives Ward trilogy. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. Now, James S.A. Corey is the author duo behind the Expanse series, which is unrelated to this series and radically different. So, on Booktube and Instagram and stuff, The Mercy of No Gods is getting very bad reviews. And I know why, but I don't think they're justified. If you go into this expecting The Expanse, you're going to be vastly disappointed. The Expanse is space opera at its finest. It is action-packed. There's great character development. But then again, The Expanse is more than double the length of this book. It's all humans. It has, you know, a mystery element going on. There's, you know, some romance. There's... The Expanse is just one action scene after another. The Mercy of Gods is not that. The Mercy of Gods is a plot-driven, slow growth, cerebral character analysis that has characters start off as one thing and they are slowly growing into something else throughout the first book. And there are most definitely aliens in this book. Lots and lots and lots of aliens. And you get differing perspectives. You get the perspective of the invaded humans. You get the perspective of something called the Swarm. And then every once in a while you catch a glimpse of the perspective of the invading alien dominant species in the galaxy. And that alone makes it unique in sci-fi because you rarely get the perspective of invading species. You rarely get a glimpse into that mindset. And they are very different than the humans they conquer and subjugate. And this is just a very slow burn. There is some action, but it is not the purpose of this book. It is not the plot of this book. The plot of this book is to not just do the world building, but to slowly introduce characters and to build that atmospheric, not tension, but and desperation isn't the right word, but it comes the closest to the appropriate emotion of what the story is going after. And I can't say too much without spoilers. However, as the story ramps up, as the stakes become higher and higher, and the peril to our main characters increases, so too do the overall stakes in the story. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Is it, as good as The Expanse Book 1? No. Is it deserving of all the highly mixed reviews? Yeah, probably. If you're going in and you're expecting action-packed space opera, you're going to be disappointed. I don't know another way to put it. But if you go in with the perspective that this is unrelated to The Expanse, and it is one of those slow burn, get accustomed to the world, let's learn something new kind of things, books, then you're going to have a completely different reading experience. I am looking forward to books 2 and 3 of the series. I am so grateful that Chrissy sent this to me, and that every time I see it on my shelves in the future, I will have a great big smile and just remember how incredibly blessed I was by Chrissy with this book. I have no trouble recommending this book if you enjoy sci-fi. Do I think everybody's going to appreciate it? No, probably not. Do I think it's a interesting, worthwhile read? I absolutely do. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But, I tend to be the eclectic reader that reads a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and yeah, I'm still good with it. We all like different things, and I liked the slow burn. Even though I'm a character reader, I liked the slow burn plot of this immensely. So, sometimes that's how life goes. Okay, so what am I going to read in the next week? Well, I am still making my way through The Divine Comedy by Dante. I'm doing the 100 Days of Dante, as you know, and I believe this week we're ending up at Canto 12 or 13. And reading one canto every, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is working out beautifully. It's not a huge time commitment. It lets you absorb the canto in between reading the next. The video series that is out on the YouTube channel is fantastic. I will link it down below. I have never read Dante before. I know, shocking. And so I'm enjoying this. And as I discovered this weekend, Rod Dreyer has a Dante book. And here's the picture. I think it's How Dante Changes Your Life. Trust the picture. I am just absolutely looking forward to that book immensely. I don't know another way to put it. I need to read that book after I finish this. I am all in on Dante. So, okay, what else am I planning to read? Well, let's see. Make some room over here. I have started Dracula, and I recorded a vlog clip for this last week, and yeah, the mic didn't work on that either. So I'm going to re-record that vlog clip this morning. I am thoroughly enjoying Dracula. Just a brief glimpse on the vlog, which should be out next week. Did not expect to enjoy Dracula. Vampires are not my thing. However, I am thoroughly enjoying Dracula. Like thoroughly enjoying Dracula. Okay, what else is on deck? Well, I'm going to pick up this week Beneath a Forsaken City by Carla Lorano. This is book 2 in the Song of Seer trilogy. I know Chrissy's about to start book 3, and I need to catch up so that we can talk about them. This is like 299 pages. Yeah, it's 299 pages. I can read this in a day. I just need to sit down and read it. And I am looking forward to this. I can't believe I let this sit on my shelf for over a year and I haven't finished it. So I want to finish this. Not just this book. If I could finish the 3rd book as well, I would be ecstatic. And I am very in the mood for Victorian lit. I understand, October begins tomorrow and it's Victober, and Dracula, luckily for me, is a Victorian novel. And I have other Victorian novels sitting on my shelf or awaiting me, but I also, the Victorian adjacent on my shelf is calling my name. And this week I want to read Bronte's Mistress by Finola Austin. I talked about this in my pile of possibilities. This one is under 300 pages as well. So again, not out of the realm of possibility to finish this week if I just sit down and read and I don't get distracted. This also is epistolary in nature. There are letters back and forth, and there's a newspaper article as the book opens up. And I love me a good epistolary, so yeah, I am very much looking forward to this one. And the last Victorian adjacent was a September choice, and I put it off. That is The Yard by Alex Grecian. This is set in 1889 London, so right at the tail end of the Victorian era, and I've wanted to read this for a very long time, and this is one I cannot wait to read. It is 422 pages, so depending how the rest of the reading goes this week, I may or may not get to it this week, but we shall see. So, that is what I read last week and what I'm planning to read next week. What did you read last week? Anything good? Anything I should know about? Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.